Something strange is happening in China. Take a look at this photo. Notice a pattern? They're different women, but they have the same face, the same pointed chin, the same razor-thin nose tip, the same oversized eyes. This is no longer just a beauty trend. It's one face being mass-produced. Thousands of women have paid surgeons to make this face permanent. They edit that face into their selfies with a phone app, then walk into a clinic and ask to have it carved into their real skin. And they're doing it by the millions. Not a fringe of celebrities, but a whole generation of ordinary young women. It's the fastest growing beauty industry on Earth, and, as we'll see, quietly, one of the deadliest. Take it to the extreme and you get someone like Abby. She was 14, lying on an operating table, fully awake, while a surgeon suctioned the fat out of her legs. She hadn't asked for it. An illness had made her gain weight fast, and her mother decided the fix wasn't a doctor, it was a knife. A child awake for all of it. Abby is 35 now. She's been back more than 100 times. Something like $500,000 spent remaking her own face and body. Today, she co-owns a clinic in Beijing, China's capital, selling the same promise. The BBC asked if she'd ever stop. She said something that I haven't been able to shake. I don't think I'll ever stop my journey of becoming more beautiful. She's not a freak story. She's the front edge of something enormous. What looks like one woman's private compulsion is really a whole country's scaled up. Millions of young women taught that the face they were born with is a problem to be solved. And it's lethal, because the same industry selling confidence to tens of millions of young women is also killing some of them. They go under for a sharper nose, a thinner calf, even a few extra centimeters of height. And some never wake up. Stay with me. By the end, you'll meet some of them and see a surgery so dangerous, the government actually tried to ban it outright. Yet it's still quietly for sale today. How does a system turn a 14-year-old into a lifelong patient? And why does its biggest beauty boom keep killing the people it promises to make beautiful? This is China's deadly plastic surgery obsession. Let's get into it. When most people in the West think of Asian cosmetic surgery, they think of South Korea. But the real story, the one almost nobody outside is watching, is happening next door. And it's much bigger. In 2023, China's core medical aesthetics market hit around $27.6 billion, growing about 20% in a single year. That is according to Deloitte. Sit with that growth rate for a second. 20% in 1 year. That is not a trend, that is a stampede. And it didn't stop. By 2024, the market had pushed past $40 billion, even as the breakneck growth cooled to around 10 to 15%. A stampede that's still running, just a little less frantic than it was. By 2023, the number of people in China paying for these procedures had reached about 23.5 million consumers, the population of a large country, all chasing a different face. And that number is climbing every year. This isn't a fringe indulgence anymore, it's mainstream. And here is who they are. According to research from iResearch, 74% of first-time patients are under the age of 31. And by official tallies, nearly 9 in 10 are women. So when you picture this market, don't picture a wealthy older woman getting a discreet touch-up. Picture a young woman in the prime of her life, in her 20s, walking into a clinic for the first time, deciding that her real face isn't good enough to start her adult life with. Now, here's the number the industry itself is obsessed with, and it's the one that should make you nervous. Penetration. The share of the population that's actually had work done. In China, that figure was only about 4.5%. In South Korea, it's roughly 5 times higher. To you and me, that sounds like a ceiling. To an investor, it sounds like a runway. The pitch in every boardroom is the same. China is underpenetrated, that there's enormous room to grow. It could be 5 times this size. The world's most populous beauty market has barely gotten started. For years, much of that money didn't even stay in China. Patients flew to Seoul, the capital of South Korea, by the plane load. Now China is racing to keep it at home, and by early 2024 it had licensed 18,584 compliant clinics of its own, which raises the obvious question. South Korea's obsession was decades in the making. China built this in a fraction of the time. So, what is the engine? What is pushing 23 million mostly young women toward the operating table this fast? The answer is not vanity. Well, not entirely. In fact, it's something much more bizarre. In China, there's a phrase you'll hear over and over once you start looking. 颜值经济, the appearance economy. 颜值 literally means something like face value, and it's not a metaphor. In modern China, your face has a price, and the market has already done the math. There's a study published in the Journal of Economic Modeling that put real numbers on it. Using a massive national dataset called China Family Panel Studies, the finding: good-looking workers earn roughly 5.4% more than everyone else. And people judged below average, they earn about 3.3% less. That's a beauty tax. You're being charged in real salary terms for the face that you were born with. And unlike most taxes, this one follows you everywhere, into the interview, into the dating app, across every first impression you'll ever make. And the researchers found the gap was widest for skilled, high-status jobs, the exact careers every ambitious young person is fighting for. They tracked it to things like social skills, communication and confidence, the soft advantages a good face is assumed to carry into the room before you've proven anything. In other words, the market isn't just rewarding beauty, it's treating your face as a proxy for whether you're competent at all. Now, put that on top of an already brutal job market that China has had for many years. In June 2023, youth unemployment in urban China hit a record 21.3%, more than 1 in 5 young people out of work. And the government's response was telling. Shortly after, it simply stopped publishing the number. So imagine you're 22, 1 in 5 of your friends can't find a job, and the study tells you that prettier faces are worth a 5% pay rise before you've even spoken a word in the interview. Suddenly, surgery doesn't look like vanity, it looks like a strategy. This is why one of the strangest rituals in modern China happens every summer. Right after the Gaokao, the all-for-nothing college entry exam, the exam ends and the clinics fill with teenagers. By the account of one Beijing hospital's cosmetic director, around 70% of those student patients go for the first thing, double-eyed surgery. A crease cut into the eyelid to make the eyes look bigger and rounder. And here's the part that got under my skin. The parents are paying. Chinese media has described the post-Gaokao makeover not as a rebellion, but as a strategic investment. Mothers and fathers treat their child's face as capital, an asset to upgrade, before sending them on to the job market and marriage markets. This is not teenagers sneaking off to do something their parents would hate. This is a family together deciding the kid needs a better face to compete. There's something quietly heartbreaking in the framing. A child's face recategorized as an asset class. Not, do you like how you look, but will this face return on our investment? The most personal thing a person has turned into a line on a family's balance sheet. And it's measurable. A peer-reviewed study in BMC Psychology in 2024 surveyed thousands of female college students in China. The young women who watched a lot of beauty live streaming were nearly twice as likely to be seriously considering cosmetic surgery. And the closer a student was to the actual job market, the more internships and part-time work she'd done, the more she'd felt the heat of competition, the more she thought about going under the knife. So that's the pressure cooker. A face is worth money, jobs are scarce, parents are covering the bill, and the algorithm is whispering in your ear all day long. But pressure alone doesn't explain the strangest part of all of this. Because it's not just that people want to be more beautiful, it's that they all want to be beautiful in exactly the same way. Remember that one face from the start, the pointed chin, the razor-thin nose tip, the huge eyes. In China, it has a name, Wang Honglian, the internet celebrity face. And once you start seeing it, you cannot unsee it. The same look on thousands of different women. As one Chinese outlet put it, is often templated directly on a couple of famous actresses, Angelababy, Fan Bingbing, who are treated as literal blueprints to bring to the surgeon. Think about how strange that is. In most of the world, beauty trends fragment, different looks, different subcultures, different ideals. In China, the internet did the opposite. It converged. Millions of people chasing one increasingly narrow, increasingly identical face. Scholars have started studying this as a genuinely new phenomenon. A beauty standard, quote, generated by AI, pixel by pixel, end quote, as one researcher puts it, and enforced by software. The result was what she calls a standardized face, not designed by a fashion house or by a culture, but effectively computed. The average of 1 billion filtered selfies fed back to people as the face they're supposed to want. And this is where it tips from sad into surreal. Let me tell you about a woman named Wang Jing. She's a beauty influencer with a baby-faced look and close to 1 million followers. And according to the Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post, more than 500 of her fans went out to get surgery to look exactly like her. 500 people, one face. And she co-owns a clinic that offers the exact look. And the answer to how one face reaches 500 strangers is sitting in your pocket. China runs on photo editing apps, Meitu, Beauty Cam, that don't just smooth your skin, they reshape your entire face in real time. Slim the jaw, enlarge the eyes, raise the nose, whiten the skin automatically. By the middle of 2025, the company behind these apps reported around 280 million monthly active users across its products. And here's the psychological hook that makes it dangerous. The more young Chinese women edit their selfies, one study found, the more they consider cosmetic surgery. The habit teaches them to see their own face as an object to be fixed. A 2025 study in PLOS1 pushed it further. Among teenage girls, it wasn't even posting selfies that predicted surgery cravings most, it was watching everyone else's, the endless scroll of perfected faces, feeding a body dissatisfaction that the scalpel then promises to solve. So you edit your face until you love the fake version, then you walk into a clinic and ask a surgeon to make the fake version real. So that's the demand side, manufactured at scale by software and a job market. But demand is only half of the story. All of these millions of young people need somewhere to actually get cut. And what I found waiting for them is the part of the business that the glossy ads never show. This is where the investigation goes dark. Here's the reveal that reframes everything I've told you so far. Most of the people getting hurt in China's beauty boom are not being hurt in gleaming licensed hospitals. They're being hurt in what the Chinese call 黑诊所, black clinics. Unlicensed, illegal, operating in apartments, hotel rooms, and back offices. And these are not fringe. They are the market. According to industry data compiled by research firm iResearch, back in 2019, China had around 13,000 legal licensed aesthetic institutions and over 80,000 illegal ones. Do that math. The illegal operations make up roughly 86% of the entire market. The black market isn't the underbelly of the industry, it is the industry. The legal clinics are the minority. On top of that, the same data pointed to more than 100,000 unlicensed practitioners, people performing injections and procedures with no business doing it. And here's the detail that tells you where the real damage is concentrated. About 90% of what those unlicensed practitioners do is cosmetic injections, Botox, fillers, the lunch break procedures that sound harmless, marketed as quick, cheap, no big deal. That's the trick. The thing people think is low risk is exactly where the black market lives. And what are they injecting? Often poison. The China Association of Plastics and Aesthetics estimated that around 70% of Botox and filler circulating in the country was either counterfeit or smuggled. That is, fake product of unknown origin going straight into people's faces. Now, you might assume that at least the person holding the needle has some training. Let me take that away from you too. In June 2025, China's state broadcaster, CCTV, ran an undercover investigation into so-called crash course training camps for cosmetic injections. The promise? Become an injector in around 3 days. No medical background required. By day 3, trainees were practicing injections on each other. By then, they were handed a certificate that basically meant nothing and sent out to inject paying customers. And during the filming, the horror became literal. A trainer injected a cosmetic substance into a young female trainee, and she went into anaphylactic shock and collapsed right there and had to be rushed to the hospital. That's the supply chain. Fake product in untrained hands in unlicensed rooms, sold to 23 million people who think they're buying confidence. So what happens when it goes wrong? Not lumpy filler wrong, catastrophically wrong. That's the next part. And I want to be careful here because these are real people who died. Let me give you some names, because the statistics only matter if you remember that each one was a person who walked into a clinic expecting to walk out prettier. Start with Gao Liu, a young Chinese actress. In late 2020, she went in for a nose job at a Guangzhou clinic that regulators later found wasn't qualified to perform it. The surgery went wrong. In the weeks after, the tip of her nose turned black. When she went public, the penalty that Guangzhou health authorities announced was almost insulting. The doctor was suspended for 6 months, and the hospital fined the equivalent of around $7,500 US. Then there's a woman surnamed Liu from rural Guangxi who took out a loan of more than $5,000 US to pay for her transformation. She underwent 6 separate cosmetic procedures: eyelid surgery, a nose job, liposuction, fat injections, crammed into 2 sessions across barely 2 days. Days after she was discharged in December 2020, she collapsed. Investigators later attributed her death to pulmonary embolism, a clot that lodged in her lungs, a known danger of the liposuction she'd just had. She did not survive. Her family asked for around $170,000 US. A court settled at roughly half of that and ruled she had shared the blame. Here's one that shows how gruesome the failures get. An influencer known online as Xiaoran, 33, had liposuction and breast augmentation at a clinic in Hangzhou in 2021. Days later, she developed necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating bacterial infection. She spent around 2 months in intensive care before she eventually died. The health authority found the clinic negligent. Its mistakes, they said, had caused her death. And the one I find hardest to shake, Xia Lisha, 19 years old, a second-year nursing student. She thought her nose was too flat, so she saved up her own money for a rhinoplasty. Her mother said she'd been putting money aside for more than a year. She just wanted to be pretty. In January 2019, during the operation, she suffered malignant hypothermia, a rare, sometimes fatal reaction to which the body's temperature spikes uncontrollably under anesthetic. She died on the table. A nursing student killed by an elective nose job. Now, these are the cases that made the news. The young, the photogenic, the ones with followers. But underneath them is a wave of damage you never hear about, and these are just the famous ones. Officially, China logs more than 20,000 disfigurement complaints a year, over 50 ruined faces a day, most of them from illegal providers. The Consumer Complaints Body says cosmetic surgery grievances have jumped more than tenfold since 2015. As the industry exploded, the wreckage exploded right alongside it. And notice the pattern across these names. Gao Liu, an actress; Xiaoran, an influencer; Xia Lisha, a nursing student, someone who, of all people, understood what an operating room was. These weren't reckless outsiders. They were ordinary, often informed young women, doing what an entire culture told them was normal, even smart. So you'd think there would be limits, lines that even this industry would not cross. There are. The state has drawn them, and I want to show you what happens to those lines, because it tells you everything about whether anyone is actually in control. In 2006, China's health ministry banned an entire category of cosmetic surgery outright: cosmetic leg lengthening. If you've never heard of it, here's the nightmare. Surgeons break both your leg bones and attach a metal frame that slowly pulls the two halves apart, millimeter by millimeter, so a new bone grows in the gap. People did this effectively to gain a few centimeters of height. It went so wrong so often, patients left crippled, scarred, unable to walk, that the government made it illegal for cosmetic purposes. That was nearly 20 years ago. So it's gone, right? It is not gone. In early 2025, an investigation aired on Chinese state television and reported by the state-run Global Times, which exposed an entire underground chain still doing it. Middlemen were faking medical records to get healthy people approved for banned surgery, then taking cash on the side to get around the law. One surgeon was charged around $16,000 for the procedure, and the people who trusted them paid a very different price. The investigation documented patients left with serious bone infections, osteomyelitis, and deformities. One woman's leg twisted into a club foot, leaving her able to walk only short distances. Another patient was left unable to walk normally at all, with no medical fix available. A surgery so dangerous the state outlawed it 2 decades ago is still being sold today in the dark for the price of a car. And it's not the only red line being crossed. There's a whole frontier of extreme procedures pushing into the grey market, including calf skimming surgery, where surgeons cut the nerves that control your calf muscles, so the muscle and the leg looks thinner. China's National Health Commission had to formally ban that one too, warning it could cause irreversible nerve damage and permanent loss of function. In other words, to look a little slimmer for a few years, you gamble on never walking again. Think about the logic here. The procedure is so harmful, the government bans it. The ban becomes a marketing problem, not a stop sign. The demand is so intense that an illegal supply just grows back to meet it. This is the part I want you to really hold on to, because it's the whole thesis of this video. A ban is the strongest signal a state can send. We have decided this will cripple you, so we are forbidding it. And in China's beauty market, even that signal gets drowned out. The desire to be taller, thinner, prettier is louder than the law. That tells you the problem was never really about which procedures are legal. It's about what people have been taught they can't live without. Which brings me back to the question I started with. If even outright bans don't hold, if death on the table doesn't slow the market down, can anyone actually control this thing? To be clear, China is trying. This is not a government that's ignoring the problem. Starting in 2021, regulators went after the marketing machine itself. New advertising rules classified medical beauty ads as medical advertising. And remarkably, they banned ads that deliberately create what was called appearance anxiety. The rules also moved to protect minors from being targeted or used to sell procedures. Let that land. The state was so alarmed that it tried to outlaw making people feel ugly for profit. Then in May 2023, 11 government departments joined forces and issued a coordinated crackdown, a high-pressure campaign explicitly aimed at the black clinics, which we just discussed, the shadow doctors and the black market drugs. Tighter licensing, harsher penalties, public channels to check whether your surgeon is even real. On paper, it's serious, so why am I not convinced it's working? Because of the sheer size of what they're fighting. Depending on how you measure it, counting the full value chain, not just the procedures, the broader market is now valued at well over 40 billion US dollars. One KPMG estimate put it above 43 billion US dollars in 2023. You cannot easily regulate something that enormous, that profitable, and that wanted. When 86% of the operators are already illegal, tighten the rules runs straight into the wall of an economy that has already routed around the rules entirely. Even now, the story isn't slowing. In January of 2026, this year, The Washington Post reported on China's latest crackdown on botched operations and noted the cosmetic surgery market was on track to be worth around $42 billion, second only to the United States. The platforms were deleting hundreds of thousands of accounts, pushing illegal procedures. The state was banning content that frames surgery as necessary for your career or your love life. But you can delete the accounts. You cannot delete the pressure that created them. The job market is still brutal. The face is still worth a raise. The apps are still reshaping 100 million selfies a night. And every crackdown runs into the same wall. The deaths, the bans, the takedowns are all aimed at the supply side, the clinics, the injections, the ads. But the demand was manufactured by something much harder to arrest. A whole society quietly agreeing that your real face is a liability. You cannot arrest your way out of an incentive. As long as a prettier face pays, someone will always be willing to sell it. Ban or no ban, license or no license. So I'll leave you where we started, with Abby Wu. First cut at 14 because her mother decided her body was a problem to be solved. More than 100 operations later, $500,000 later, she's standing in front of her own Beijing clinic, selling the same promise to the next girl in line. And that's the part that scares me, because she isn't the exception to what this industry built. She's what it looks like when the logic is followed all the way down. A whole society found a way to make 23 million people feel that the face that they were born with wasn't enough to start an adult life with. Then it built an industry, legal and illegal, to sell them a new one. The real question was never whether the surgery is dangerous. We know it is. The question is whether you can even regulate an obsession after you've spent a decade teaching people they need it. Whether the state can put the monster back in the box, or whether it already built something it can't stop. I don't think it can. And I don't think Abby does either.